So the invitation right now is to just take some deep breaths together here, really appreciating the beauty of our outer surroundings. I was out on the deck and the sound of the rushing water, and the sun was out a little bit, so all the water droplets were glistening, and just breathe in all that outer beauty and then bring it here to our time here together. And the beauty that each one of us bring, just like that outer beauty of nature, it's all one, isn't it? We're connected, we're one with the one. One with that beautiful music. I love Teze services, because you can just sink in. One with that message from the Daily Word about any outer conditions that don't serve us. Can we get past that and open our consciousness to that Christ consciousness of the splendor of our being? So on this first Sunday of Lent, we're going to deepen the ground within our being of that beauty and that splendor. I'm going to play a song to take us in a little bit more into this time of meditation. It's called Soften the Ground. So it's softening the ground of our hearts with these thoughts and feelings of truth, just like that rainwater and the sun outside is softening the ground out there. Deep breaths into that ground of your being from your heart space. Maybe put your hands on your heart. That love of our Creator, that love of creation, and don't forget that creation of you to bring deep love to right here, right now.
Soften the ground of my heart. Carve out a space within where your presence can abide.
So continue with those deep breaths from your heart space, if that feels right to you. And know that just honoring that breath, that living presence of God breathing you, from that heart space right in the middle of our being, where perfect balance exists between the head and the rest of our being. Can soften the ground of our being, acknowledging that God presence in us. And as we spend this time breathing together and being together in this consciousness, we are doing the work of those songs. Where there is light in the soul, there is beauty in the person. We are opening to that light in us. This is what we can bring to our world. Where there is beauty in the person, we can then bring that harmony to our home, to this home space. Where there is harmony in this spiritual home and our personal homes, we cannot know how much we bring that honor in the nation. And as these ripples of love, of consciousness extend from here, they extend that honor in the nation and truly can bring that vision of peace in the world alive. So let's really never discard the importance of the truth of this prayer work that we bring here together. So we begin this time of softening the ground of our being with those truths and that vision and this communion that we do in the name of living love. And so it is. Amen and amen. So as much as I love music, which I've told you all many times here, it opens my heart, it begins that softening always. I also love story, because story brings these teachings alive for me. How about you? We can all read the teachings, but when I hear stories, it makes a bigger difference for me. So I'm going to share 3 parables with you this morning. And parables are teaching stories. It's where the story has a deeper meaning in it. And this first one, I may have told you before because I love it, and I've had it for a long time in the ground of my being. And it's the story of 2 little seeds coming to planet Earth. And these 2 little seeds fell on the ground, and one seed was faith, and one seed was fear. And I often joke that I carry both those seeds within me, those seed thoughts. How about you? And I still carry them after all these years. And I really this year want to commit to that seed thought of fear that I carry from traumas in my life, from outer experiences that I see that I don't like, from health challenges going on within me, whatever the story of where those fears originate. You all, it's time to let that fear wither within the ground of our being, is it not? And I keep telling myself, if not now, when? What's it going to take, Jessie, for you to bring only love to all these stories that I carry within me. And so that's my commitment with these 2 little seeds this year. And I ask you if it's time for that commitment for you as well. And then there's another story that I read this last month in Emmett Fox Daily Reader. And it's called Bear Hugs Kettle. And there were these campers out camping in the forest. And they needed to go out into the forest to maybe gather more wood. It didn't say what they needed to go out into the forest to do. They needed to go out into the world. And they had a kettle of boiling water. They left a kettle of boiling water on their campfire. And a bear came into their campsite. And the bear saw this boiling kettle of water and was curious. And the bear did what bears know to do. He went and grabbed that kettle of boiling water and hugged it to him. Because that's how bears protect themselves, don't they? They hug things to them that are dangerous. And it burned and it hurt. And what did the bear do? He kept hugging it tighter. What do we do when things hurt us? When stories hurt us, when experiences hurt us, when fears of the world seem scary, what do? We focus on them and we hug them tighter. And what's that doing to the ground of our souls, the ground of our being? So I need to tell one more parable. By one of the master storytellers of parables of all time, one of our wisdom teachers, Jesus. Don't lose that page. This is in Luke chapter 8, and it's a story that he told during this season of awakening of the great Easter resurrection time that is so in sync with our season of nature out here. It's all the same. And when a great crowd gathered and people from town after town came to hear him, he said this parable. And I think of that crowd as that crowd of thoughts that we all carry within us. And a sower, that's our thinking process, the sower of seeds, our thoughts. The daily word spoke to that. A sower went out to sow his seed, and as he sowed, some fell on the path and was trampled on, and the birds of the air ate it up. Some fell on the rock, and as it grew up, it withered from lack of moisture. Some fell among thorns, and the thorns grew with it and choked it. Some fell into good soil, and when it grew, it produced 100-fold, the law of multiplication. And as he said this, he called out, "Let anyone with ears to hear listen." Those would be our inner ears, not listening to those crowded other thoughts. Then his disciples asked him what this parable meant. He said, "To you it has been given to know the secrets of the kingdom of God, the consciousness of God, to bring it to all earth. But to others I speak in parables, so that looking they may not perceive, and listening they may not understand, those that would do harm." Now the parable is this: the seed is the word of God by whatever name, the word of truth through all religions. The ones on the path are those who have heard. Then the devil comes, that wrong thinking that we all can sink into, and takes away the word from their hearts. We get scared. Experiences have scared us. So they may not believe and be saved, their whole beings resurrected in the beauty of this love that's here for us. The ones on the rock are those who, when they hear the word, receive it with joy. Can you relate to that? But there's not enough root in their being. They believe only for a while, and in a time of testing, can fall away. Can you relate to that? I can. As for what fell among the thorns, these are the ones who hear, but as they go on their way, they are choked by the cares and riches and pleasures of life, and their fruit does not mature. Doesn't life bring so many busy things to our life that we get involved in, pleasures and other things, duties, responsibilities? But as for that in the good soil, these are the ones who, when they hear the word, hold it fast in an honest and good heart, and bear fruit with patient endurance. So that's what we're being called to do here, isn't it? To be, I'd always heard this called the parable of the 3 seeds, but when I read about it just recently, it said the parable of the soils. And I liked that, because all the seeds are good, aren't they? But it's where they fall in our being and how we can live them, and if we nurture them enough through all the seasons and experiences of our lives. And so I want to ask you a question. Are there any master gardeners in this room? I'm going to put you on the spot. I have answers if you don't, but I have. As a master gardener, when the spring season comes in your garden, what do?
I watch it.
You watch it? Do you do anything else?
Only the bare minimum of what needs to be done, like clean up.
You clean up
That kind of stuff, uncover any little plants that are covered.
right?
But basically, we don't do a whole lot.
Okay.
Just not much.
Okay. Okay. Might another thing that you could do be to fertilize the soil in any way? Even if it's a natural way somehow?
That would be it. I don't do a whole lot of fertilization.
Okay.
I guess so.
Okay.
Some of that stuff.
Okay, I hear you. Okay. So, we're going to take these ideas of patience and watching and care and clearing the ground, and maybe a little fertilization, because that's part of my talk, into this garden of our being, that we have to prepare this soul of our being, just like we would prepare the soil out here in the garden. And so the first thing we have to do, that I heard you say, is we have to kind of clear the ground a little bit and see what's coming up in that ground, so that it's a clear, wonderful space for new, magical, wonderful seeds of life to grow in. And I looked at the garden of the ground of my soil as I've been preparing for this and thinking about it. And, I have some weeds, some fear thoughts, some fear seeds that have been nurtured way too long in my life as I joke around the seeds of fear and the seeds of faith. And as I've thought about this metaphor before, I've always just thought, well, you have to pull those weeds out, for gosh sake. And this year, as I thought about it a little more, I we have to honor those weeds. And maybe they're only a weed because we call them a weed. And maybe they were ways we protected ourselves in other times of our life from experiences. They were the only thing we knew to do. But those ways of protecting ourselves, those holding on like the bear did, are choking that new life that wants to burst forth, is just waiting there for us to burst forth. And so as I've been working with this for myself, I thought I have to bring extreme kindness to these weeds. And I ask you, do you have any of those places in your lives that still need a little tending and weeding out, but maybe with a place of deep honor of how you've dealt with these thoughts of fear before, of these traumas, of these experiences, or even new ones that have popped up recently? And so they have to be pulled out of my being, and perhaps yours, with great patience, like you said, and care, because sometimes they've grown quite deep, almost like that taproot of faith that we would much rather have growing deeply and connected with all that is. And so to really spend time forgiving ourselves and accepting that this has been part of us and we've felt like we needed it for so long, but maybe this is the spring season to let all that go. What do you think? And John Beecher says that strength, spiritual strength to do this, is a matter of mind really made up. Is this a time to really claim that spiritual strength and know I am not going to take this with me any longer into my life? The soul of my being is wanting to flower forth anew with a greater life force. And so am I willing to hold intention and prayer and faith and spiritual strength for that to happen? Are you? Willing to be willing, maybe. I've been saying willing to be willing for a long time. This year is going to be willing. Because I'm having more symptoms in me. And I know that I'm the creator of these. And I want to partner with that creative process that's my gift from the Creator in a much stronger way this year. How about you? So then I thought about one more teaching that master gardener and master teacher, one of the master teachers, Jesus, taught us, and those were the attitudes of being, the Beatitudes. And the Beatitudes are all attitudes of being. How do we want to be in this world? To bring forth the beauty of us, that unique expression that no one else can bring. And the one that really spoke to me, they all speak to me, but the one I chose the most was, "Blessed are the meek, for they shall inherit the earth." Now, when I first heard that word meek, I didn't like it. It felt kind of wimpy. But what it is calling forth in us as an attitude to do is to be meek towards God, to really surrender to this presence, this living love that we call forth through our living words and feelings, And when we surrender into that meekness, that attitude, only God, thy will be done, then we do inherit the earth. Because we can walk this earth through all the experiences and the outer chaos from a place of deep honor and knowing within ourselves. And in doing that, we become that change we want to see in our world, don't we? The simplicity of holding to the truth. Where is God in all this? I have to hold to that. Where is God in all this? What am I focusing on instead of the spiritual truth that we come here? I think that we've chosen to come here during just these times to know and to teach by our living example. To not hold on to blame in any of those ancient or new stories. We can change the story by seeing through the eyes of love. It's scientific principle that we change the experience simply by the way we observe it. Remember the experiment, the Japanese man, Emoto, with the experiment with the water, where they looked at the crystals of water through a microscope and then they put words of hate on them. And they reconfigured. And then they put words of blessing on them. And they reconfigured in these beautiful expressions. And how much water are we made up of? Do you see the power we have to bring with this love and this forgiveness and this letting go of blame? So the invitation now is going to be to take these ancient stories, if you're willing. We all have different stories. It doesn't matter what they are. They're all stories of separation, of not knowing truth, that maybe we've held on to way too long. I'm in my 70s, and some of these stories are really old. And it's time. And not to let them get hooked by the new chaos that we see in our world, but to grow those taproots of faith and strength and that Christ seed of our being of knowing who we are. So we're going to let this song take us in, and if you don't have any of those stories, blessed be, hold the space for us. You should be up here doing the talk. And if you do, let that story just be there for watching it and seeing if it's time to pull it out and let these thoughts bring that moisture that's needed to soften that ground of our being. And this song, you've heard it before, I've brought it before, it's one of my favorites. It's based on the Rumi quote, "Beyond the idea of right and wrong, there is a field. I will meet you there." Beyond the idea of that field in me, I want to create that field of only God, of only love. All right. So again, we just sink in with our breath, honoring the Christed being that we've come here to be, in all its foibles and unforgiveness and magnificence as well, human divine.
Beyond the idea of right and wrong, there lies a field. Beyond the idea of right and wrong. Their lives of fear, I'll meet you there, I'll meet you there, in the field beyond, I'll meet you there.
The creator of all creation, waiting.
I'll meet you there, I'll meet you there, in the field beyond, I'll meet you there. Beyond the idea of power and control, their lives of fear.
In my defenselessness, my safety lies.
On the idea of power and control, their lives of fear.
In my meekness to God, my safety lies.
I'll meet you there, I'll meet you there, in the field beyond, I'll meet you there. I'll meet you there, I'll meet you there, in the field beyond, I'll meet you there. In the field beyond, I'll meet you there. In the field beyond, I'll meet you there.
Deep breaths. Can you feel your way into the ground of your being with that love waiting to receive that new growth that we're softening here today together? Can you feel the love and the acceptance and the forgiveness needed? Just let it all go. It's only hurting that beauty of our soul. That we came here to express and share. It's time to let those old stories go totally. They're only hurting us. It's time to get ready in this season of awakening to begin to tell a new story of faith and strength and magnificence through it all to right here, right now. And to let our magnificence shine, just like all of nature is reflecting back to us this day. Just like all the smiling faces here today are reflecting back to us. That beauty, that life of God as us. And so as we just allow ourselves to rest in this field beyond the idea of any right and wrong, I'm going to share a poem with you and a closing song. And I'm envisioning all of us as those new baby seeds in this season of awakening, wanting to awaken anew. Magical God seeds, brimming with vitality and the vibration of God. In this poem I've adapted, it's a John O'Donohue poem, and I've adapted it a bit. It says, a child enters the world. As we plant our new little seeds in the fertile soil of our souls, may we hold the energy of the possibility of delight as to how these seeds will blossom, as to how they will restore to us the forlorn places of separation, a new vitality and promise, curiosity. May we each hear the music. God is all there is in the neglected wonder of this truth. God truly is always all there is, underneath it all. May our eyes never lose sight of why we have come here at this time, in this place, and that we never be claimed by the falsity of fear again, or eat the bread of that bitterness. In everything I do, think, feel, and say, may I allow the light of the world from where I am leaving as that little baby in pure consciousness shine through and carry me home here in this wonderful journey we share called life. Deep breaths, just allowing, holding the space, clearing the space, watching, waiting.
Let it draw near. Let it come in. Let it pass through. Let it move on.
New spaciousness.
Let it draw near. Let it come in. Let it pass through. Let it move on.
New fertile soil of our soul.
Let it draw near. Let it come in. Let it pass through. Let it move on.
Opening us to the wonder and delight, the magic of this life process
Let it come.
as we allow it.
Let it pass through. Let it move on.
Can you feel it?
Let it draw.
Let it breathe you right now.
Let it come.
Divine love flowing as us.
Pass through. Let it
fiber of your beings. Tenderness with our strength,
Let it come here.
but persistence.
Let it pass through. Let it move
And in so doing, we bring light and beauty to our person. We bring harmony to our homes. We bring honor to our nation. And we shine ripples of the vision of peace in our world. And so it is. Blessed be.